bending the knee to the World Economic Forum, bending the knee to the European Union, and it's only because of Conor putting out these tweets to his 10 million followers that this gets highlighted to a certain extent. Very interesting weekend in terms of geopolitics. Everybody is talking about the Ukrainian gangster Zelensky getting absolutely mauled in the Oval Office. And like me, I'm sure everyone was thinking the exact same thing. First of all, thank God someone has the balls to actually stand up to this dude. And secondly, when Benjamin Netanyahu was in the Oval Office a couple of weeks ago, how come Trump was standing behind him, pulling out his chair for him, then ensuring that there will be 12 billion taxpayer dollars sent there within the first 2 months of his tenure for military aid and weaponry? I'm sure everyone was thinking that exact same question. In fact, very right-wing prominent content creators who have a huge following who get promoted massively on the algorithm for talking about Trump, when they put out messages like nobody comes to the Oval Office and dictates to Donald Trump, and then somebody posts a picture of Benjamin Netanyahu underneath and absolutely ratios it. People are noticing what's going on in the world, and that's very interesting, and Conor McGregor is one of them. Because in the aftermath of Zelensky getting mauled in the Oval Office, you had our country, Ireland, you had the UK, you had the majority of countries that based themselves in the theory of liberal democracy, whatever that means, come out and offer their backing to the Ukraine and their backing to the gangster Zelensky. And it's a mixture of a bunch of things. One, complete and utter virtue signaling. Two, profiteering from warmongering. And three, anything to push back against Trump, they're all into that as well. Conor McGregor was keeping a keen eye on geopolitics on the weekend, as you can imagine, and he wasn't being quiet whatsoever. He was being extremely vocal, especially about how the Irish government are doing everything in their power to remove the neutrality of Ireland and get every single one of us into a European conflict. Conor says that there's 4,603 Irish children homeless at this very moment. That number is probably on the low scale, to be honest with you. I think overall you're looking at about 16,000 Irish people out in the street, whilst the Irish people are getting taxed through the wazoo, and that money has been sent to Ukraine, or it's been strategically moved over into funds for IPAS centres and just your general social welfare and upkeep of hundreds of thousands of sub-Saharan Africans. But Conor accompanies that tweet with a screenshot from the national newspaper. Costings sought for massive expansion of Irish military, including purchase of fighter jets, proposal to double naval services fleet and equip army with modern armoured vehicles. Now, if anybody knows anything about Ireland and its politics and the fact that we're a neutral country, even though our liberal democracy tries to keep pushing us into conflicts, they'll know that this is one of the cringiest things ever. Directing funds towards military expansion is absolutely insane. Well, it would seem that way, but there's a plan in place from these absolute scumbags. Imagine our mainstream media, which is literally funded by the government, constantly promoting, manipulating and brainwashing Irish people into this state of fear. Constant fear. Pick up any newspaper, turn on any radio, turn on any TV show, and from the Irish government, from the Irish media, you will see that Putin is this evil dictator. Trump is an evil dictator. You must have 150,000 euros electric car, but you're not allowed to heat your house by burning some turf, which we've been doing for hundreds of years because of climate disaster that's incoming and will be here before you know it. Take your injections, follow the yellow arrows, wear a mask, welcome every single sub-Saharan African fighting age youngster into your neighbourhood without asking any questions. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you're extremely lucky and your Irish kid is not homeless, then we as the government are going to do our best to send them to die in a foreign conflict. For years and years, the government has left down the military of Ireland. Secret plans for the UK to protect Irish skies because we're just incapable of doing it ourselves. From who? I don't know. As a neutral country, there shouldn't be a threat here, even though we do allow people to come here, land here, fuel here, and do all other sorts of things. These are the stories that you hear coming through the military service. Terrible pay scale. Absolutely brutal mandates about taking injections, otherwise you get kicked out. Naval service patrol ships go to sea without working. Military equipment worth 60k is lost or dumped by Defence Forces of Ireland. So these are the news articles that we see on a regular basis here in Ireland, when it doesn't really matter, where they can dump some money, it goes missing, where they can inflict mandates on young teenagers who want to serve their country. It's very interesting that all of a sudden our government, our leaders, think that we should have military expansion and are willing to spend, I believe, hundreds of millions for that expansion. Conor McGregor is talking about Simon Harris, the former leader of the country and probably will be the leader of the country again next year, or it's the way it works works over here. It's kind of just the old switcheroo happens over and over again with pathetic weak men. Harris couldn't do a full pull-up. Nor ever in his life has he spent a fiver of his own money. He is pushing our Irish soldiers into battlefields in foreign wars. 4,603 homeless children currently in Ireland, and he's pushing to increase military spending on fighter jets for the sole purpose of donating them to overseas wars. This is of course responding to an RTE News, which is the long arm of the government. It's the mainstream media that is funded by the government. If you don't fund it with your taxpayer money, they come and put you in prison. Liberal democracy. Thank God we won back in 45. Draft legislation from the Irish government to remove the requirement of UN Security Council authorisation on Irish participants in peacekeeping missions will be brought to the Cabinet on Tuesday by Taoiseach and Minister for Foreign Affairs and Defence Simon Harris. Imagine seeing this puny 6-stone cretin who's barely able to stand upright, who's pale in the face like a vampire, and then having a title like the Minister for Defence attached to you. Oof. So Conor is responding to the Keir Starmer outlandish reaction, I guess, to the Zelensky getting mauled in the Oval Office, but also virtue signalling and pushing liberal democracy hard.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting.
So Conor responded to this Keir Starmer shite, right? I wonder what the mandate of entry would be for national-born citizens versus immigrant population now residing. If we do, in fact, go and get involved in these conflicts. Ireland is littered with mass migration centres, human trafficking hubs across the length and breadth of the country, availing fully of all our welfare benefits, whilst our soldiers are flown off to engage in an overseas conflict. Leave all the new lads to it, I suppose, is it? We borderline promote these conflicts while simultaneously housing, feeding and clothing those escaping them. The ever-glaring hypocrisy of the Irish establishment yet again, where Ireland's presence today in Euro conglomerate meetings, man up and make peace, vote McGregor. Now Conor is pushing this whole, if I'm president I stop this. I know that there is some sort of vetoes that can be signed by a president before the Irish government actually entertain any sort of new policies, but I'm not sure if he has the power to stop anything. I think it's more of just, I guess, a social media post to highlight what's actually going on, where he's 100% correct. Lee Hurst, the comedian, has a great response to Keir Starmer here as well. He says that Keir Starmer is going to stop calling white people far right now, as he needs them to go fight and die. And as a beautiful caveat, their homes can now be given to asylum seekers. Absolutely legendary. But Conor makes an absolutely brilliant point in terms of national-born citizens versus the immigrant population of the country. Because who's going to go and fight these international conflicts that Simon Harris, Micheál Martin, Ireland, UK, Europe as a whole seem to be so anxious to get involved in?
Rishi Sunak tells you that you're going to war. What are you going to tell him?
I'm going to tell him to just like, bro, you fizz, like, for starters,
Yeah.
you feel I'm going to war?
Yeah.
That you started, like, what?
Yeah.
Come on now, use your brain.
I know. Why are you not going to go to war?
I ain't going to war, because it's like, bro,
Yeah.
it's England. Why am I fighting for a country I don't like?
Are you not English?
Nah,
Where are you from then?
I'm from Jamaica and Africa, innit?
Who's going to go? Is it going to be the hundreds of thousands of military-aged men that was shipped in here at 3 o'clock in the morning on buses? Or is it going to be the Irishmen who are patriotic and decided to join the defence forces because it's in their family, it's in their blood, and it's something they feel very passionate about? Because we all know that the people promoting these conflicts are never going to be the ones that go over there and fight it. Absolutely not. It'll be your daughters and your sons that are sent off into the meat grinder. I think this was an interesting page to pull up. It's the International Legionnaires. It's the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, where anybody can join from the age of 17 all the way through to 60. Defend the freedom of Ukraine, Europe and the whole world. Join now. They've got open arms willing to take anybody over to Ukraine and get fed onto the front lines. I wonder if Keir Starmer, Micheál Martin, Simon Harris, all the leaders of liberal democracy here in Europe, are their kids signing up to join Ukraine's Foreign Legion? It's an interesting question to pose, because as Conor said, who joins the army? Who's going fighting these conflicts? For instance, if we look at America, we understand completely that 94% of the military force is made up of right-wing or conservative-minded people. There's about 4% then of soy lattes sitting in offices doing paperwork, and about 2% of Mexicans that are trying to get a visa. That's how the military force is made up over in America. Extremely patriotic people with conservative values that want to protect their country and want to protect what their ancestors have built. They get fed into the meat grinder. That's how it goes. If you look at Europe, Ireland and the UK, very similar to the United States of America in terms of who joins and who goes onto the front line. Removing the Democratic-Republican dichotomy from the situation, basically what you have is patriotic people who love their country that join the army. So these socialist, communist governments that do nothing but promote virtue and liberal democracy are just availing of a strategy that was used all the way back in World War I and World War II, where you can reset the populace, get rid of all the agitators, the people that are patriotic, the white males of Europe and UK and Ireland, send all these young patriotic white lads away to die, and what we're left with is the soy latte sipping, mustache mullet wearing guys who are just about to finish their master's degree and are far more agreeable than them pesky patriots. That is what this is all about. Bending the knee to the World Economic Forum, bending the knee to the European Union. Conor can see it. Most people with critical thinking minds can see it. Unfortunately, the media have a stranglehold over the people. And it's only because of Conor putting out these tweets to his 10 million followers that this gets highlighted to a certain extent. There is people in Europe, Ireland, UK doing absolutely brilliant work on the ground, and they're doing absolutely brilliant work on social media getting this out to a wider audience. But again, I thought it was beyond important to show that Conor isn't frightened of the government. After everything they've done in terms of defaming him and trying to tear him down, he's still putting out the word that we're not done yet. We're still ready to fight and we're still ready to push back against this absolute lunacy. Let me know your thoughts down below if any of this made sense. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate everyone that jumped on board and has been subscribing over the last couple of weeks. And I do have a Patreon link in my bio. If you want to help out the channel, keep the show on the road. Every little helps and we'll keep pushing out the truth there. Cheers.